Hi, I'm Brian Wicklund. I'm lead counsel with Garfinkel Schwartz. I'm coming to you today in our Maitland, Florida office, which is a suburb of Orlando. We also have an office in Cocoa Beach, Florida, which is on the Space Coast near Port Canaveral. What our firm does is basically we're a fourth-generation law firm that handles only basically three types of cases, and they're all under the federal statutes. A lot of people don't know about these laws, and they're kind of complicated. But basically what we do is we help people that are injured overseas under various government contracts all across the world. We also help people that are injured that are civilians on military bases across the United States. And the third group of people that we represent are longshoremen that work in the harbors and seas and rivers and ports of the United States. This is a niche area of law. Not many people know how to do this area of law. A lot of people don't even know that the law exists. These are all under a family of federal laws that are particularized to people that are injured in those particular instances and locations that I just described. We are a fourth-generation law firm. However, we're always evolving because the laws and the injuries that we see are always evolving. And one of the injuries I'd like to talk to you about today is PTSD. It's a hot-button issue in the military. It's also a very tough thing to diagnose and a very difficult thing for people to get grips on in terms of actually seeking treatment. In our area of law, basically you have 1 year from the time that an injury occurs to file a claim under either the three statutes that I just talked about. However, there are ways to get around that. But before I get into that issue, I'd like to talk about what is PTSD legally speaking, and what are your rights under these laws if you actually become diagnosed with it. The biggest issue is a lot of people are in denial about their symptoms. They don't know what they are. They're embarrassed to go and talk to their family members. Sometimes they think that they cannot speak about any of the things that they've seen because of government contracts and privilege and classified information. A lot of times they don't even know that anyone can actually help them with the symptoms that they have. And everyone knows the classic symptoms of PTSD, which are basically sleeplessness, anxiety, flashbacks, loud noises making people jumpy, not wanting to be around crowds, anger issues, and the like. A lot of times our potential clients call us and we ask them about their particularized symptoms. And they just think that it'll go away someday, and they'll be okay on their own. Basically, legally speaking, if PTSD affects your future earning capacity in terms of not being able to hold down jobs that you could hold down before this PTSD occurred, whether that be any job or a job that's in a combat zone or in a dangerous type setting, that's when you should seek treatment. And if you choose to seek treatment and we get past the apprehension of going to a mental health practitioner, what we would do is we could advance the costs of an evaluation for you to go to someone of our choosing to determine what your diagnosis is, whether that be chronic depression, PTSD. We would get that evaluation from a psychiatrist and then go forward with the claim. What the claim basically entails is a lot of times, because our clients are not actually in the military and they don't get screened by military personnel that know to look for PTSD, they're kind of on their own and they leave and they don't know who to talk to or what's going to come out of this. Sometimes years pass before the symptoms manifest themselves to such a degree that the person's earning capacity for the rest of their life is going to be somehow altered. They're not going to be able to get the kind of jobs that pay them the kind of money that they got beforehand, because any exposures like that would trigger their PTSD symptoms. There's treatment out there which involves all kinds of very creative ways that help people with PTSD that we're involved in. That would be equine therapy, where people tend to horses. And there are also instances where a person could get what's called canine therapy, and they get on a list, and nonprofit corporations set up therapy dogs that are trained to deal with people with PTSD. Which is really usually a pretty big success. But that kind of treatment is very, very helpful sometimes. And then there's also clinical therapy and medications to take to help alleviate the symptoms. But basically what I'm telling you is once you get past the point of saying this is affecting my life, you should definitely get it checked out. Whether or not that turns into a legal battle or not, that's a question that is private between us and your psychiatrist and you. Everything that's said with your attorney and or your psychiatrist is completely confidential. A lot of other people I run into, sometimes they say that they don't want to be checked because although they think they have these symptoms, they don't want their guns to be taken away. That's more of a military type setting where if a military doctor diagnosed you with that, they might report that, and those types of situations can be talked about with me and to see if there's any risk of that kind of situation, which there probably is not. But the myriad of possibilities in terms of the law and these 3 different federal laws are simply you file a claim. You definitely, I set up what your average weekly wage was while you're doing your job, the last job that you had, or the job that actually affected you the most upon being diagnosed with PTSD. And it's a very simple equation. The jobs that you could do now, if any, that are disabling you, that you can do now, that you couldn't do now, but you could do before your exposure to PTSD. Whatever that average weekly wage is, minus whatever you can do in the future, which is limited, times 2/3 is basically what your lack of earning capacity benefits are indefinitely until you get the treatment that you need and get back on your feet, or maybe possibly throughout the rest of your life. And that figure is what we would ask for, and we would go to court to try to prove. PTSD has been hotly contested recently. However, I think as we continue making inroads, it'll be the insurance companies will recognize it more and put more value on it than they do today. And again, this is Brian Wicklund at the Maitland office at Garfinkel Schwartz, signing off today. My colleague, Bennett Garfinkel, will be talking to you a little bit about constrictive bronchiolitis in the future. Thank you for your time.